Here it is Saturday again. Seemed like it was Saturday 2 days ago, but however, it's looking it looked nice out there. Not much sun, but I'm sure it's a pretty day. I haven't been out myself. I'm in a little different position here. Oh, you don't know how I wish I had a little studio where I could do my filming. And by the way, I was trying to delete one of my stories, and when I set it for delete, YouTube deleted the wrong story, and it was my story about the cornbread, so I had to put another one on, which meant by having deleted the first cornbread story, I lost all of my messages that you sent. Sorry about that, but I read them before that happened. So I want you to know I did read them all, and they're all great. You're just great people. I can't say enough about you. That's good. And anyway, I want you to know if you couldn't find the message that you wrote on the cornbread, that's the reason. It's because I don't know enough about YouTube to even be here telling stories. But I want to tell stories, and I'm getting to that age where I can't remember much, and what I do remember gets confused. So just bear with me and say, oh, she's getting old. That's all I have to say. And it's true. So I've got a story today that, now this story may be in my first book. Wait till you hear this one. Some of you may have already read the story. I hope you have. That means you're reading my book. And I got to thinking, it seems like way back when, I promised you stories about the nursing home where my mother was residing. And I just happened upon the one little story. And the thing about this is, I was working in Tennessee when I wrote these stories, and I was visiting my mother on weekend. So while sitting here rereading one story, I thought, I am so glad that I took notes every week when I went to the nursing home, because I wanted to have something to remember, because you forget more than you remember. And I'm just pleased that I've got this on record each week that I went to visit my mother at the nursing home. And when I came back to work on Monday morning, my co-workers were waiting for a story, because they got a kick out of some of the things I would tell that went on at the nursing home, because you see, not everything in a nursing home is bad. And sometimes you come across something that is really belly laughing funny. And I don't have much of that, but anyway, those things do happen, and it's so nice to be able to record the good with the bad, because everybody thinks a nursing home, there's nothing good about a nursing home. Well, I can almost say that too, but you know, we have to have them. So I'm going to read one of those stories to you. And I know some of you don't like for me to read. You want me to tell the stories, but I don't want to leave anything out that I have written. So just bear with me, and you may be able to read this story wait till you hear this one. And if you want to order it, you can get it from Amazon. Okay, I'm going to start reading to you. And you can get you something to eat and drink while you listen. I'm going to start here. I dreaded the winter months when I would be driving over Jellicoe Mountain on slick roads in snowy weather. The hazardous weather never kept me away, though. I would enter the nursing home going straight to Mama's room, which she shared with a lovely lady. Her roommate was not able to communicate with anyone, but the lady had a house full of daughters, like Mama's, who sat with their mother regularly, and one was nearly always there when I visited each week. When I arrived, Mama was usually sitting in her lounge chair while the aides changed the linens on the residents' beds. The first thing I could count on was Mama saying, "What took you so long?" I would come up with some flimsy excuse that was suitable for the question. The large rack that held the bed linen sat in the hall. I knew it would be a while before they could get Mama's bed changed, so I would grab sheets and pillowcases and then start stripping Mama's bed. I figured it wouldn't hurt to give the aides a helping hand, and I had nothing better to do except entertain Mama while she griped about anything she could think of to gripe about. She loved attention. When Mama felt good, she could complain about everything, including the birds chirping at the bird feeder outside her window. If she wasn't feeling up to par, she was sweet as an angel. I never could figure that out. My mother could be funny, too. Some of the things she could say threw me for a loop. On Saturday night, we watched the Golden Girls. Mama was hard of hearing, and whether or not she could understand what they were saying, it was a colorful show, and she enjoyed watching the 4 actresses perform. Invariably, every week when the spotlight was on Blanche, Mama would say, "Do you know she ain't nothing but a whore?" Every week. I remember the morning I walked into Mama's room, and she was sitting in her lounge chair looking rather dismal. I asked what was wrong, and her reply was, "That old bitch won't let me get back in bed." Now, my mother was never one to use foul language, and she would climb our frames when one of us kids said something out of line. This was unusual talk for her. Short time later that day, I ran into the physical therapist in the hallway and told her what Mama was upset at, some old bitch who wouldn't let her get back in bed. The worker laughed and said, "I'm that old bitch." I met several interesting residents from week to week. When Mama would be napping, I took walks through the hallway to another section of the nursing home. I was more than surprised when told that my 4th grade teacher in school was a resident, Miss Trosper. I remembered her as being one of my favorite teachers. That was a long time ago. Each day, I walked Mama to the dining room for lunch. That's where I met Winnie, a lady entering her 90s and had lived at the nursing home for more than 10 years. She was so sweet and delightful, and every day after we finished our lunch, she would invite Mama and me to her room to join her as she studied her Bible. This she did on a daily basis. I later learned that the city of Corbin was named after Winnie's grandfather. Mama wore hearing aids, and she couldn't understand what a person from across the dining room was saying. A heavy-set elderly lady, who I discovered was a resident, kept talking to Mama and laughing a lot. My sister was with me, and we asked Mama, "Who is that lady?" She said, "Oh, that's Ida Smith's niece." We called her Ida. Her name was Ida. Let's see, where was I? That's Ida Smith's niece that lived down in Rockhold when you kids were growing up. She's the one Ida used to talk about all the time. Ida Smith had lived out the street through the birth of all 13 kids in my family. She lived in the first house my daddy built. You mean that is Harriet Ellen? Ida's pronunciation of Harriet Ellen. Ida's niece? I nearly spurted the words across the room. My memories went back many years to the days when Ida came to our house every day at noon while we kids were home from school to eat lunch. I bet we heard stories about her niece, Harriet Ellen, 100 times. The weird thing was, my memory went back to the sound of Ida's voice back in the late 1940s. This lady's high-pitched voice across the room from us was like an echo to our neighbors. She even laughed like Ida, wore the same wire-rimmed glasses, and had the kinky, curly perm like Ida's. It was almost like a reincarnation. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. This was our first occasion for meeting Ida's niece, Harriet Ellen, also known as Harriet Ellen. 50 years of time in the making. And then one of the happiest and most joyful persons I was to meet at the nursing home took me back to my young teenage years. Every Easter, Mama would give my sister and me $3 each to go to French's shoe store to buy her Easter shoes. It was the smallest shoe store I can ever recall seeing. 2 aisles with shoe boxes stacked to the ceiling. Mr. French would let us try on shoes costing more money than we had to spend. I can remember him reducing the price so that we could have the shoes we liked best. I met Harold French in the dining room one day. He was a resident at the nursing home, always smiling. I recognized him immediately. He was an avid University of Kentucky basketball fan, and every time a game was televised, this sweet man sat in the entertainment room alone, watching the Wildcats play. I would meet him in the hall after lunch and ask, "Mr. French, how was your lunch today?" He responded as though he had just eaten at the Ritz. "Wonderful, very good, never a complaint." I was told this man sat in the lobby beside the house phone every Saturday morning, waiting for the phone to ring. His 2 sisters called him regularly each week. After conversation with one sister, he would wait for the phone to ring again. It was his second sister. There was another resident. I keep hitting the wrong button. There was another resident named Doris. She appeared to be in her 60s. I never knew why she was a resident. Doris wore a blue flannel robe daily. It was covered with cigarette burns. The staff had a special place where Doris could sit and smoke. She held a cup of water in one hand and her cigarette in the other. I couldn't tell if the lady had mental problems because when she talked, which wasn't often, she seemed quite normal. The staff at the nursing home enjoyed Mama because she was one of the very few who suffered from nothing but old age and the inability to live alone. Approaching 100, she had a terrific memory. During the 2.5 years as a resident, the nursing staff learned everything there was to know about my family. One thing I learned, if I promised to bring Mama something the next time I visited, that was the first thing she asked for when I walked through the door. Every Saturday, I would meet a young man in the hallway that was an exact twin to Ernest T. Bass from the Andy Griffith Show. He walked like Ernest T., wore tennis shoes, ball cap, knee-length pants. He kept a portable radio strapped around his waist and plugs in his ears. He had a natural bounding country gait when he walked. For months, I thought he was visiting a patient at the home, and then I learned he was the patient. That's the way it works. During my mother's 2.5 years stay at the nursing home, I kept a weekly journal of events. It's been a while since I reviewed my notes, and without them, I would have very little recall of Mama's final years. She would be alert until the end. She had many visitors, some of whom she didn't know. I will always remember two men who visited residents at the nursing home regularly, and they always stopped to talk to Mama. I would ask her if anyone had visited her during the week. She would answer, "Oh yeah, two young men come to see me. They stayed a long time. I don't know who the hell they were." Mama. I had to laugh because my mother had never talked like this during all of her years. Those two young men were C.D. Vermillion and Eddie Pointer, who paid regular visits to residents. C.D. continued visiting Mama because, as he said, she reminds me of my mother, and his mother was deceased. Mama loved pills. Everything to her was a nerve pill. When she entered the nursing home, she was taking off most of her medicine. I could see such a difference in her strength and mobility. She didn't have to hold my arm and stagger when we walked to the dining room. It would be a while before she was using a wheelchair. She kept asking for nerve pills. My sister decided to pick up Tic Tac breath mints, both green and white. You remember them. When Mama would ask for a nerve pill, we would give her the Tic Tacs. One day Mama asked for nerve pills. I handed her 2 white Tic Tacs. She said, "More. I want 4. "Mama, I can't give you 4 pills. The doctor will get after me for overdosing you." "I don't care what the doctor says. I want 4 pills. And give me the green ones. They're stronger than the white ones." I later told the doctor what we were doing with the Tic Tacs, and he laughed and said, "If it works, no harm done." Sometimes we found ourselves playing innocent little tricks on Mama. The A&P grocery had closed its doors more than 15 years earlier. Mama and my oldest sisters had traded there every week. They got to know the clerks on a personal basis. One day, a lady stepped into Mama's room and before introducing herself, looked at Mama, who was then nearing 101, and she said, "I bet you don't remember me." Mama spurted, "Of course I remember you. You are Elizabeth from the A&P." The lady's mouth fell open in amazement. They had not seen each other in 15 years. Just hope I have that kind of memory too. There are lots of things I can say about my mother that will touch your heart, but I don't want you thinking she was perfect, by any means. Mama had a cantankerous side as well, and she didn't hesitate to reveal it. Now and then, Mama played the pity party role. It rarely worked with me. I would immediately change the subject when she started the tear-jerking stuff. One day, she was feeling sorry for herself when she put on that familiar dejected face and said, "Why do you reckon the Lord has let me live this long?" With wrinkled brow, I gave it a bit of thought and then replied, "I don't know, Mama. Maybe it's so that you can aggravate the devil out of all of us kids." It worked. Her sorrowful, downtrodden face turned into a grin. It was July 20th, 1998, a Sunday afternoon. I had been with Mama for 2 days. I knew something wasn't right because she wanted to stay in bed during that day. and she slept much more than usual. Before I left that day to return to my home in Tennessee, my brother came by the nursing home. I told him Mama had been sleeping too much. I couldn't keep her awake long enough to eat her dinner. I was having to spoon feed her, which was unusual. She needed to be checked by her doctor. The next morning, a nurse decided Mama had had a mini stroke. She was immediately taken to the hospital. I was called. A day later, I walked into her room at the hospital. Mama was hooked up to tubes and looking very jaundiced. I knew her time had come. Barely able to open her eyes, she looked at me as I said, "Mama, do you know who I am?" "Of course I know who you are. You're Pat." Hold it. Those were my mother's last words. The Lord had let her live a long and fruitful life, 101 years and 6 months. Now that's just one story. There are a bunch of them, and maybe now and then I'll pick out some of them to read to you, because some of them are humorous. They're just down-to-earth life stories, the things that really happen. And I am so glad that I took the time each week to put the things that happened in a journal. I told about the other people, the residents, the visitors, the things Mama said, the things Mama did. And I remember Mama and her sister Renee was 2 years younger than Mama, and they looked so much alike. They could have been twins. They had a piano in the dining room, and they also had Sunday morning worship services in the dining room, and they had someone that played the piano there. You didn't hear much singing, but still, that was the way it was. So my sister and I took Mama over to the piano and set her down on the stool and said, "Mama, play the piano." Well, she played hymns, always played hymns. She was not familiar with all the popular music, and I don't know if she could have played them or not. But she played by ear, so she sat down and she started playing, and it was obvious she was having trouble. We couldn't figure what she was trying to play. She had mistakenly put her fingers on the wrong keys. She was playing the song, but they were on her fingers on the wrong key. It didn't sound right. It didn't come out to be the tune that she was playing. And that was disappointing to me, because it was disappointing to Mama. And I knew she'd been playing a piano and an organ all her life. I could go on, but we'll just keep this story as one in itself. And I'll come back to my journal as time goes along and tell you other stories that I wrote while Mama resided at the nursing home. Now you see, the thing about my mother was she had 6 daughters. My oldest sister had already died. She had 6 daughters, and we took turns spending the day with her. So I had to come on the weekend because I was the only one who lived too far away to come during the week, because I worked. The others were all retired. And I would get up early on Saturday morning, and I'd be at her bedside by 9 o'clock in the morning. And so the nurses and the aides really, they enjoyed my mother. For one thing, she spent her time telling everybody in the nursing home our family history. There wasn't much she left out. And the nice thing about it was the aides and the nurses could communicate with my mother. She was the only resident there that they could talk to her and get reasonable answers like you and I would talk about things. And I thought how strange that they enjoyed coming into the room, and when she started telling them a story, they weren't about to leave until she finished, because she wouldn't let them leave till she finished. And another thing that was nice was the fact that one of the six daughters was there every day to take care of her, and the aides could spend their time with the other patients. They got used to us being there. We were almost like family to them after a while, and it was a few months before I discovered that one of the nurses, I had gone to high school with her, and I didn't recognize her at all. And of course, she had a married name, which I didn't recognize. And I was just dumbfounded when I learned she and I were classmates in high school. She was the nurse. So that's all I'm going to tell you today. I'm hoping you're having a good day. And I'm getting such beautiful messages from all of you. I enjoy reading them. I know I make mistakes. I'm belching and I don't know why. So anyway, I do want you to know that I appreciate every one of you. And I'm getting to where I feel like I know you personally. I may not know your full name, but I know a bunch of numbers that's after your name. When I read your messages, I say, wonder what 764321 means. Or EZ11. Wonder what that means. That's everybody's secret code when they come on with their messages. But I do like to see a name like Bob and Tom and Ellen and Mary and things like that. That way I can remember who wrote that message when I can connect it to a name. But that's just a minor thing. That's just one of those things. And I'm just blabbing along to finish up this story. I haven't had lunch yet, and it's almost dinner time. It's a good thing I live alone. Anybody living with me would get so fed up with my schedule, they wouldn't last long. That's one thing I could count on. They'd be leaving soon. You know how that is. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm sitting at my dining table, still got it decorated. I don't know if I can show you anything. You've seen it before anyway. Take this off the table. Get it out of the way. And I'm going to turn off I'll make it. I'm going to turn off my iPad. Let's see if I can turn it around a little bit. Oh, you can't see much. There's nothing there to see. Just one plate still left on the table. Thank you for watching. I expect a response. And if you like the nursing home stories, I will continue with them as a series. Thank you.